Americans spend a lot of time fantasizing about the lifestyle that they want to live when they retire. However, they usually don't think about the cost associated with living that lifestyle. In fact, according to the U.S. Census, the poverty rate for seniors from 65 to 74 is 23%. For seniors above 75, it rises to 35%. People wrongly assume that their expenses will go down when they retire, when in fact they often go up. Today I'm going to show you why you should start planning for your retirement now. We're going to discuss the true cost of retiring, the truth about Social Security and how you cannot depend on it alone, and finally, things that you can do to save for your retirement. So just how much does it cost a retiree to live? The first thing to consider is that your bills don't go away just because you retired. In fact, people often want to live a more extravagant lifestyle, so their bills may go up. They may choose to move to a more expensive community, such as on the water. Retirees have a lot more free time to do the activities they enjoy. Taking vacations, going golfing, these things add up. The biggest cost for retirees that they didn't have before is health care. Healthcare costs are continually rising. In fact, since Medicare was adopted in 1965, healthcare costs have increased twice as much as the general cost of living. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, in 2007, Americans aged 65 and older spent an average of $4,382 on out-of-pocket healthcare costs. Medicare costs are already far over their projected budgets. Therefore, there has to be a reduction in the benefits that Medicare offers. Another factor to consider is a long-term care facility. The current average cost of a long-term care facility is $56,000 a year. However, that number is expected to rise to $100,000 a year within the next 10 years. It's also important to consider inflation. Let's say there's an annual 6% inflation rate. If there are 24 years to live after age 60, an income stream at age 84 will only be 24% of its original purchasing power. One last factor to consider is life expectancy after retirement. It is estimated that someone currently in their 20s will live well into their 90s. If you retire at 65, then you may have 30 or more years for which you have to support yourself. Next, we're going to talk about Social Security. Half of retirees retire with Social Security as their only source of income. Social Security was only meant to be 40% of the average person's income. More than half of the elderly would fall below the poverty line if they did not have Social Security. And just because you pay into Social Security does not mean you have an earned right to receive it. Congress effectively cut Social Security from 23% of the retired. A government Social Security is just an agreement that one segment of the nation will help support another segment of the population. Therefore, Social Security is not guaranteed by the government. It is guaranteed by future taxpayers who may or may not be willing to pay. Perhaps the biggest problem with Social Security is that it will run out of money. When the baby boom generation begins to retire, there will not be enough working people paying into Social Security to support them. The final thing I'm going to talk about is how you can start saving for your retirement now. The first thing you should do is make a realistic budget of what you expect to spend during retirement, accounting for inflation, what you're going to make for Social Security, etc. If you live for 25 years after retirement and you have $1 million saved, that averages out to $40,000 a year. Now, $40,000 a year may sound like a decent amount of money, but 60 years from now, when the time comes to use that money, $40,000 a year is not going to be very much. Once you figure out how much money you'll need, you should start figuring out what investment and saving plans work best for you. There are many ways to invest for retirement. Individual retirement accounts, or IRAs. There are several kinds to meet individual needs, such as a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. It's recommended that you consult with a financial advisor to determine what's best for you. There's also employer retirement plans, such as 401ks or profit sharing. Many employers will contribute or do a matching to these plans. Financial advisors strongly encourage people to recommend the max amount that the employer will contribute, as this is free money. There's also personal savings. Some people prefer to invest in a traditional savings account. There's less risk, but there's also less return. The final way that people can succeed in their retirement is through a part-time job to earn additional wages to supplement their income. The biggest division among retirees is whether or not they own a home. Retirees that own a home retire with an average net worth of $115,000, while retirees that retire without owning a home retire with an average net worth of only $800. When it comes to investments, how much you invest is not nearly as important as the length of time that your money is invested. This is why it is so important to start saving now for your retirement. In conclusion, I hope you see that it's important to start planning for your retirement long before you retire in order to ensure you have an adequate amount of money to enjoy your retirement. This starts with making a budget of what you realistically expect to spend and following up by making and sticking to an investment and saving plan.